Hello and welcome back to the Okanagan Reader. I'm your host, Jim Bowering. This is the anti-penultimate chapter of Green Comet, the first book in the Green Comet trilogy. But first, I will reveal the location of the last remote recording. It was at the wine village, looking north. Now, as for chapter 45, we meet Minder again. He of the 4 arms and the lights in his face. After a breakfast of coffee and iceberry muffins, he takes Elgin to Stanton's bubble, which has been recovered and restored to its original position. Stantonand Galatea appear to be an item. Minder comes to realize how deeply the separation from Francis is hurting Elgin. The universe for Elgin looks big and cold. Here we go then.
Chapter 45. Elgin Goes to the Bubble. This time when Elgin woke up, it was to find Minder, a young man with lights in his face and 4 arms. Minder had won a competition to be the lucky one who would take care of Elgin, and he was doing a fine job, whether he believed it or not. He'd taken Elgin to the square, and to a flashball game, and even though Elgin started out miserable and grumpy, he seemed to be feeling better. Minder had another excursion planned for today, and he couldn't wait to spring the surprise. They would be heading out right after breakfast, which was Elgin's favorite, coffee and iceberry muffins. Of course, Elgin could tell that something was up. "Okay, Minder," he said. "What's up?" "What do you mean?" asked Minder, his face flickering through the rainbow. Elgin's laughter wasn't cruel, but it made Minder blush even more. "I can tell when you're planning something," he said, finishing his coffee. "So let's do the dishes and you can tell me all about it." Minder glumly began clearing the table. "I wanted it to be a surprise," he said. Elgin took pity on him. "Okay," he said, heading for the sink. "I won't press you for it. Let's keep it a surprise." When they went out, they didn't go to the square, taking another turn before they got there instead. The corridors they took got progressively smaller and less finished looking, and Elgin could tell that they were heading upward toward the surface. It seemed familiar to him, and when they came to a small door set into the final dead-end tunnel, he was pretty sure he knew where they were going. When Minder opened the door and ushered him through, he came out into the dark splendor of space, the galaxy glittering and shimmering before him. Elgin grinned. He was in Stanton's bubble, or at least a reconstruction of it. "Well, you took your time," said a familiar voice from the back of the bubble. Elgin turned. His enhanced eyes were already adapted to the low light, and he could easily make out 2 people back there. The one who spoke was Stanton, and he came forward and embraced Elgin. He was squeezing hard, so Elgin squeezed hard back, while looking past Stanton at his companion. "Galatea?" he asked, uncertain. She came and took over the hug. "Move over, Stanton," she said. "You always were such a hog." When they broke the clinch and stood back to look at each other, all Elgin could think to say was, "Stanton?" Galatea had pronounced it differently. The glottal stop was gone, and the second T was clearly enunciated. Stanton rolled his eyes, and Galatea laughed. They were acting just like a couple. She said, "That's how they pronounce it now. In all the legends and stories of the 5, that's how it is." Stanton was nodding wearily, and she grinned. "We just got tired of correcting them, and decided to join them." She laughed again. Elgin waited until he saw Stanton smile, then joined in the laughter. Stanton did too, and even Minder came in. It became one of those laughing bouts that went way beyond the initial trigger, and they didn't stop until they had tears in their eyes and the laughter trailed off into weak giggles. Elgin wiped his eyes. "We must have needed that," he said. "I know I did." Stanton and Galatea were nodding and wiping their eyes too, and he noticed that they were glancing at Minder. "Oh, sorry," he said. "This is Minder, Minder. Minder, this is Stanton and Galatea." Galatea, after the pleasantries, said, "Why do you still have a Minder? You shouldn't need one by now." Stanton frowned at her and apologized to them. "You know what she's like, Elgin," he said, shrugging. "Yes, I do," said Elgin, "and it's good to see it again." To her he said, "You're right. I don't really need a minder any more. Not that I'm complaining, but I don't know why he's still here." He looked at Minder, who blushed. "Oh," said Galatea, "I've never seen this up close." She leaned in for a good look at Minder's cheeks. "You don't mind, do you?" He obliged her with a refulgent display. Stanton joined in the inspection. "I'm getting used to it," said Elgin. "He does it all the time." He smirked indulgently at Minder's discomfort. "How about the second arms? Aren't they something?" The attention made Minder uncomfortable, but he endured it and even gave Galatea and Stanton thoughtful answers to their questions. Stanton was like Elgin, able to see the utility and practicality of the alterations, but not likely to opt for them himself. Galatea, on the other hand, was intrigued by the second set of arms. "I could hang on to you twice as hard," she said to Stanton with a salacious wink. "But seriously, it would be great for finishing work." Minder said, "The second hands aren't as dexterous as the first ones." He held up a pair for comparison, to illustrate the difference between them. "Second hands are strong, but they're nowhere near first hands for fine motor control." "I can see that," said Galatea, taking a close look at the two hands. "They'd be good for heavy work," said Minder, "for roughing it in maybe, but you'd want to use the first hands for finishing." "I get you," she said, "and they're closer to the eyes, too." "That's right. If you were finishing this bubble, for instance, you'd naturally use your first hands for the close work." "Speaking of which," said Elgin, "is that how you guys got together?" He gestured to indicate the bubble, while making this replica of Stanton's bubble. "No," said Galatea. "For one thing, this is no replica. This is the original bubble." "Really?" "Yes, the people were so impressed by you heroes that they held a lottery for the privilege of going on a 200-year rescue mission for a big ball of ice." Stanton had turned away and was looking into the depths of space, obviously uncomfortable, but unable to hide his pleasure. Minder spoke up. "I read up on this, knowing we were coming here." He spoke directly to Galatea. "Wasn't it you who organized the lottery?" Now it was her turn to be embarrassed, but she recovered quickly. "Stanton was playing hard to get," she said. "I had to be quite industrious to bring him around." "So you guys have been together for a long time," said Elgin. "Not as long as it could have been," said Galatea. "And most of it in hibernation, like you," said Stanton. "And you just happen to be up now, when I am?" "No," said Stanton. "When we heard you were going down for good, or at least indefinitely, we realized that we couldn't leave it at that." He looked at Galatea. "At least I couldn't. And Gay was willing to humor me." She came over and slipped her arm through his. Stanton smiled, obviously in love. "So we went down, too, with a request to be brought up if you were." Elgin was touched. He looked at Minder, who was smiling happily. "Did you have something to do with this?" He was wondering how it got past him. "Yes," said Minder, blushing and looking down. "Thank you," said Elgin. "Thank you all." He turned to include Stanton and Galatea. "You've made me feel so good. If only—" He stopped himself. There was no point in spoiling things with impotent wishes. Galatea came over and put her arms around him, then added her wings. "Poor Elgin," she murmured. "Poor boy." Stanton came and joined the hug, looking over top with an invitation to Minder. They stayed like that, quietly sheltering Elgin until he stopped shaking. Elgin was out at the front of the bubble looking at the galaxy, lost in his thoughts. He knew that over the horizon there was another little comet, but it wasn't visible, hidden by the bulge of Green Comet. He smiled when he remembered Buzzard swooping in his pressure suit right outside this shell of ice. His smile remained, but it filled with pain when he thought of the times he had spent here with Francis. Minder was near the back of the bubble with Stanton and Galatea, looking at Elgin's back, trying to assess what just happened. "You look surprised," said Stanton. Minder nodded. "I am," he said. "I mean, I knew he missed her, but I had no idea it would still be so strong after all this time." "Time heals all wounds, eh?" Yes, Minder shook his head. I guess that's not always true. No, said Stanton. This would be the exception that proves the rule. They stood in silence for a moment. Then he said, You know the legend, don't you? Yes, said Minder. Everyone knows the legend. Theirs was a love of mythical proportions. Is, said Stanton. It is a love of mythical proportions. That's why it's so painful to him, because it's still there, but she isn't. Minder's face flared. Oh, no, he said. I've been thinking of it as historical, while for him it's still fresh and current. Stanton patted his shoulder. Don't blame yourself, he said kindly. It's perfectly natural to think that way. He sighed. The real problem is that the legends are untrue. What? Said Minder. How can they be untrue? We have an unbroken record of the history of Green Comet. If it wasn't true, it would be revealed by the facts. Oh, said Stanton, there aren't any lies in there. The legends are based on actual events. The problem is they don't show things the way they really were. He glanced at Galatea, and she nodded her encouragement. I've seen the legends, he said, and they make fine stories, but none of them gives an adequate description of what their love affair really looks like. He was looking at Elgin, but he was seeing Green Comet as it was more than 15 centuries before. The legends use fancy language to try to show it, but they don't capture what it was really like, what it looked like, and what it felt like. What it felt like, said Minder. No one can know what it felt like except them. I mean what it felt like to us, said Stanton. Everyone on the comet could feel it. When you looked at them, they glowed. Their love radiated out of them and made us all feel good. Minder said slowly, You're right. The legends are all about them, setting them apart from other people. That's right, said Stanton. And that goes both ways. They made Green Comet feel good, and the feedback made them feel more special. Not because they were apart from the rest of us, but because they were part of us. We still think they're special, said Minder. Everyone still looks up to Elgin. Sadly, that just makes it worse. He noted Minder's disbelief and went on. All it does is remind him of how it used to be. The respect and admiration, even the reverence, it only reminds him of the vastly more powerful feelings he had when the two of them were together. Minder's face showed a blossoming understanding. He'd had an intellectual grasp on what the loss of separation must be like. Now he could feel it. All the trite homilies about no longer being whole gave way to the sense of amputation and the raw pain of the resulting wound that will not heal. He shivered. Now he had renewed respect for Elgin's strength and courage. He couldn't imagine how petty everything must appear to him. There was a long silence. Elgin continued looking at the stars, a dark silhouette on the unchanging glow of the galaxy. The three of them watched him there, waiting for the right moment, waiting for him to be ready. Finally they saw his shoulders rise and fall in a sigh, and Galatea said, Come on. They joined him at the shell of the bubble, exchanging murmurs of greeting and consolation, and looked out on the stars together. It kind of makes you feel small, doesn't it? Said Galatea, pointing with her chin at the vast display of light. And insignificant, said Minder. Insignificant? Galatea shook her head. We might be small, but we're not insignificant. You're right. They were surprised by the sound of Elgin's voice, and by the strength of it. That sounds right. He paused, then told them. Fran said we're like bacteria, and she meant it as a compliment. Bacteria are small, said Stanton. And they're not insignificant, said Galatea. I think I get it, said Minder. It's like Green Comet and Orange Comet are bacterial cells. We're going to divide and spread through the galaxy. That's right, said Elgin. That's exactly what she meant. After they thought about that, Stanton said, Elgin, we're having a little get-together the day after tomorrow. We're hoping you'll be there. Sure, said Elgin. We wouldn't miss it.